We welcome our Muslim brothers and sisters into our country. We're a nation of immigrants. That's what we are.
A bold message to President Trump before his San Diego visit. The politicians and community activists protesting his border wall project. And show us your mailers, the funding source for one election brochure sent out by Congressman Duncan Hunter.
I feel like if we talk about it more, you would be able to see how that person is feeling. Like, you'd be able to see more signs, and I feel like we can get in front of it.
A growing concern about mental health needs for San Diego's Somali community. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. President Trump has blocked plans to take over a San Diego tech giant for the sake of national security. The president signed an executive order today stopping Singapore-based Broadcom's plans to buy Qualcomm. It would have been the largest technology takeover in history. This after a government panel investigating the deal identified security concerns in what they call a hostile takeover. Qualcomm stock dropped 5% in after-hours trading after news of the order. It's been a day of demonstrations ahead of the president's visit to San Diego. This is what's expected tomorrow, according to White House staff. The president will arrive at Marine Corps Air Station Miramar at 11:30 a.m. From there, he will travel to the border to view the border wall prototypes. At 2, the president will be back at Miramar to speak to members of the military. The president will then travel north to Los Angeles for a Republican Party fundraiser. We've already seen some demonstrations ahead of the president's visit. KPBS reporter Jean Guerrero covered those today and is downtown with more. Jean?
Yes, anti-wall and anti-Trump protesters are currently gathering here in front of the federal building in downtown San Diego to protest Trump's visit tomorrow. It's the second protest of the day in San Diego. They say they don't want Trump or his wall here. I was at Chicano Park earlier today where dozens of people gathered with a similar message. Here's that story.
The protesters chanted and held up signs saying, "Revitalize, not militarize," vocalizing their opposition to Trump's visit. Trump plans to personally inspect the prototypes for his promised wall. Among the speakers was Congressman Juan Vargas, who promised to fight to get Trump impeached.
He would be welcome as our president if he stopped his racism. If he stopped pitting people once and for all against each other, if he acted like a president, if he had a little decency. He has none of that, so he's not welcome here.
Other speakers said the wall is an expensive symbol of hate. They say the existing wall is ineffective because instead of stopping illegal immigration, it has pushed it into dangerous areas where people have died by the hundreds each year. Ali Tarabi is a recipient of DACA, a temporary protected status program that Trump is trying to eliminate. He was brought to the U.S. illegally from Iran when he was a boy, and he says the wall promotes racism against him.
So I take a stand today to let this president know that my people have value. The undocumented community has value, and you cannot vilify us. And this thing you're trying to construct is not only harmful and unaccountable in terms of the economics, but it's harmful and unaccountable in terms of human life.
Other protests, both against and in favor of the wall, are planned for tomorrow.
As you can see, dozens of people have gathered already here with similar messages, holding up banners against the wall. The president is scheduled to look at the prototypes in Otay Mesa tomorrow morning. These are the prototypes for the border wall that were completed in the fall and have been undergoing testing ever since. So we'll be waiting to see if the government releases the results of that testing tomorrow. Reporting from downtown San Diego, Jean Guerrero, KPBS News.
Thanks, Jean. KPBS will have complete coverage of President Trump's visit to San Diego, including demonstrations by critics and supporters. Follow our coverage throughout the day on KPBS FM, kpbs.org, and tomorrow night here on Evening Edition. Governor Jerry Brown has written a letter to President Trump urging him to visit Central California during his stay. In the letter, Governor Brown highlights the work being done at the state's high-speed rail project. Governor Brown says it's an example of California's economic growth and a project that's putting nearly 2,000 people to work. The letter does not mention the recent lawsuit filed by the Trump administration over California's sanctuary policies. Election season is upon us, which means soon your mailbox will be stuffed with those glossy campaign mailers. And that means it's time to bring back the KPBS series, Show Us Your Mailers. We ask you to send in campaign mailers, and we will fact-check them about their claims and look at the groups behind them. KPBS reporter Claire Tragesser kicks off with a mailer sent from Congressman Duncan Hunter.
So this mailer technically isn't a campaign mailer, but it sure looks like one. On the top, it says Congressman Duncan Hunter is working to stop higher gas taxes and wasteful bullet train spending, and has pictures of Hunter meeting with constituents. But then it says this mailing was prepared, published, and mailed at taxpayer expense. It's something called franked mail, a practice that dates back to the 1700s to allow members of Congress to communicate with their constituents. But these days, franked mail can straddle a fine line between being communication and campaign ads, says Jessica Levinson, a campaigns finance expert at Loyola Law School.
It's okay if you send something that is within the quote-unquote public interest or public concern, but it's not okay if you use public funds to send a mailer that is either about a political campaign or a campaign mailer, or in other words, some type of mailer that says, please elect me because I'm a great representative.
Hunter spent about $2,500 on these mailers in 2017, according to federal spending statements. His spokesman did not respond to questions about the mailer, but sent a statement. Like every other member of Congress, Congressman Hunter utilizes franked mail pieces to communicate with his constituents and receive their feedback on issues that are topical and of concern. It would be illegal, nor would it have been approved by the House Franking Commission if it were a solicitation of votes for Congressman Hunter, the statement said. Hunter's not alone in sending franked mail. Congressman Scott Peters sends them out 3 or 4 times a year. A recent one from his office says he's working to save and fix the Affordable Care Act. The mailers can't be sent within 90 days of an election, so Hunter's mailer came in just under the wire, a few days before the March 7th deadline. Claire Tragesser, KPBS News.
Send us your mailers by taking a picture and tweeting it with the hashtag #ShowUsYourMailers, or email us at kpbs.org. The San Diego City Council will place the SDSU West initiative on the November ballot, where it will vie for voter attention along with the Soccer City proposal. KPBS reporter Eric Anderson has details.
SDSU West backers want to clear the way for the land to be sold to San Diego State University. Now, the school is proposing to build a campus that includes a housing complex, a sports stadium, classrooms, and commercial properties. It also calls the school to build a river park on land that's owned by the city but is next to the stadium site.
Well, this is the formalization by the council accepting the initiative that was circulated, petitions were verified, and now we are officially on the ballot.
Soccer City backers want to leverage a similar development with housing, a sports stadium, commercial space, and a river park to lure a Major League Soccer team to San Diego. Their initiative qualified for the ballot last fall. Voters will be asked to pick between the two measures in November. The measure that gets the most votes, over 50%, would prevail. At San Diego City Hall, Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
San Diego is expected to rake in millions of dollars this year from a local tax on marijuana businesses. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says the first month of legalization was fairly good.
San Diego's cannabis business tax applies only to recreational marijuana transactions, not medical marijuana. In the month of January, San Diego collected just under $360,000 from the tax. That's about how much city finance officials had anticipated. And the figure only includes money from the city's 13 retail cannabis stores. The city can also collect the tax on cannabis cultivation and manufacturing. City Councilwoman Barbara Bree chairs the council's budget committee. She says she already knows how she wants to spend the money.
Public safety is the #1 responsibility of local government, and we have just granted pay raises to our police force, well-deserved pay raises, so that's where the money should go first.
The state is also collecting taxes on cannabis and is scheduled to start distributing those dollars later this year. But San Diego will have to compete for those state funds with other cities and counties that have chosen to allow recreational marijuana businesses. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
A $100 million project to restore the San Elijo Lagoon in Encinitas is underway. KPBS North County reporter Allison St. John says the first phase benefits not only the health of the lagoon, but the beach.
The San Elijo Lagoon is a nearly 1,000-acre ecological reserve that stretches from the coast inland, from Encinitas to Rancho Santa Fe. It's a coastal wetland home to hundreds of species of plants and animals, many of them endangered. Interstate 5 crosses the lagoon, and Caltrans has a major freeway widening project underway. It involves heavy equipment working on both the freeway and the railway line that intersect the wetlands. To compensate for the disruption, an unusual restoration project is underway to improve the health of the lagoon in the future. The first thing a passerby on Cardiff State Beach notices is a big pipe pumping sand slurry, a mixture of sand and water, from the lagoon into the ocean. Doug Gibson is executive director of the San Elijo Lagoon Conservancy.
As we move through spring, that sand will start migrating back on shore. So during the summertime, we'll have that sand being pushed back up onto the shore.
Cardiff State Beach has benefited from other replenishment projects, and Gibson says you can tell the difference between that sand and the new sand.
This being lighter and more like our native sands, it will move a lot quicker than, say, the last beach nourishment project. That thicker grain tended to stay around a lot longer.
Birds feed in the lagoon, not far from where heavy equipment is working. On the far side, dredgers are dredging the clean sand that's being piped to the beach and creating a deep dredge pit. Once it's dug, more contaminated sediment will be moved into it.
And what we're doing there is we're removing this historic sediment buildup, these fine silts and clays that are nutrified, so they're high in nutrients, which is bad for water quality and for the lagoon. We can't put those out on the beach. It's really a unique way to restore lagoons and get rid of sediment. And so if we can remove those and take those out, we'll have a higher productive wetland system.
When it's done in a few years, the wetland will be cleaner and healthier for wildlife, and there'll be new trails for hikers to cross the lagoon. Allison St. John, KPBS News.
Well, clear and sunny skies in San Diego for now, but spotty showers are set to return this week. Aaron Calandra has more on when that could happen in tonight's forecast.
Well, hello. I hope you had a great weekend and a happy Monday. The weather today, not bad. A couple of clouds around here on the satellite, but no precipitation, no rain, not yet. But we do have more heading in our direction Tuesday and into Wednesday. Here's the bigger picture. You could see maybe a couple of rain showers north of Los Angeles, San Francisco, pretty quiet. And all in all, a pretty quiet day for us here on the West Coast. So for tonight, temperatures at 60. That's not bad. Some clouds around and across the region. Everything is very typical. Ramona, 51 degrees, Poway, 55, Chula Vista, 58 degrees, and in Borrego Springs, a low of 62. Now, here comes the rain on Tuesday. It's going to start off in northern California, spread to the north and to the south. We're going to see some heavy snow through the Sierras. Great for the ski resorts there. It is spring break for a lot of people, so that's great news for them. And then for us, we will see a couple of spotty showers, mainly to the north of us Tuesday, but then it does become a bit of a wet pattern with some scattered showers throughout the rest of the week for us. So San Diego tomorrow at 69 degrees, Chula Vista as well, Mount Laguna at 59 and Alpine 71, Oceanside 67 with mostly sunny skies. Now we do have a big dip in the jet stream here that's allowing some cooler air and also some moist air to come on in from the Pacific, so that's why we're seeing a wet pattern there. And the Northeast, well, they are seeing more snow this week in places like Boston. Could even see up to 2 feet of snow. So here we are back in San Diego. Tuesday, a nice day, 67 degrees. Here comes the rain on Wednesday. Spotty showers for everyone. We're still in a drought, so this is great news. Thursday, a shower in the evening, and then Friday and Saturday, we expect it to become a bit cooler, and again, spotty showers throughout the day. Inland, a similar pattern there. We start at 73 and progressively get cooler the next couple of days, with spotty showers Wednesday through Saturday, an uptick in those showers Friday and Saturday. In the mountains, we're at 59. Wednesday will be at 47, and notice the overnights drop right around freezing Wednesday and Thursday, and an uptick in showers Friday and Saturday. And in the desert, we'll see a few showers around as well and some clouds. Ebony, back to you.
San Diego's role as a refugee hub means providing health care for a range of languages and cultures. Research shows refugees are at a high risk of mental disorders. KPBS reporter Taryn Minto introduces us to 4 members of the East African community who have lost relatives to suicide.
To Manira Ali, her older brother was someone to be admired. He introduced her to reading, took her on 7-Eleven runs, and wasn't annoyed by little sister antics, like the time she shifted his car to neutral at a stoplight. She thought the letters PRNDL next to the gear shift formed the word Prindle.
And I was like, what does that mean? So as he was like at the red light, I took it to N.
Not surprisingly, her brother noticed.
He was just like, what's going on? What's going on? We're freaking out. And I was just like, I moved the Prindle thing. And he just looks at me and he starts laughing.
That brother that she knew and loved would later die by suicide in 2009. She and 3 others from the Somali community who lost relatives to suicide share their stories to raise awareness about mental health needs and shed the culture's stigma against mental illness. In 2011, Munisa Ali, no relation, lost her husband to suicide. She says her partner of 19 years and father to her 7 kids was in denial about his mental health needs.
When we say this person have mental illness in Somalia, we interpret that this person is extremely crazy.
In 2016, it was Liban Ali's younger brother. Again, no relation.
Nobody knows that it was coming. I mean, we know that he has some change before it happened, but nobody knew that it would be suicide.
And last year, it was Abdunur Jama's son. Jama says in Somali that his son was actually on medication, but it wasn't enough.
We have to find the root of the problem. So once we know what the root of the problem is, then we can start discussion and involve wider community to have that discussion.
Word of self-inflicted deaths travels fast through the tight-knit community. The Somali community counts 8 suicides in as many years, plus some attempts, but cite only anecdotal evidence. San Diego's Somali population, one of the nation's largest, is estimated at 20 to 30,000. The suicide rate is statistically smaller compared to the county's annual rate, which is 13 per 100,000. But UC San Diego Global Health Division Chief Wael Aldalemi says the situation deserves a deeper look, partly because it's an opportunity to investigate suicide prevention.
Whatever we learn from this community could be applied to other communities.
But also,
the suicide is almost the tip of the iceberg. If it's that severe, then there's a lot under that is hidden of mental illnesses.
The epidemiologist is seeking funding to study the underlying problem and identify intervention strategies. His past research found Somali women who had experienced trauma and suffered from mental illness could pass those coping challenges on to their U.S.-born kids. The county's Behavioral Health Services Director says he's aware of the mental health needs among the East African community and the wider refugee population, but he says the division lacks the diverse workforce to provide linguistically and culturally competent care. The county is working to better support the East African community by expanding a music therapy program. In the meantime, the 4 Somali community members whose lives were altered by suicide say they want their stories to help start a community-wide discussion about the issue. They hope their loss can help inform others about warning signs.
I feel like if we talk about it more, you would be able to see how that person is feeling. Like, you'd be able to see more signs, and I feel like we can get in front of it.
Some organizations have already been taking the steps to help with workshops and roundtable discussions. But they say more resources are needed. Taryn Mento, KPBS News.
If you or someone you know is in need of assistance, you can call the crisis hotline at 888-724-7240 or 211. We also have a map of clinics at kpbs.org. The Navy is scuttling a plan from the Obama administration to upgrade ships to run on electric power. It was one of several ideas talked about when the Great Green Fleet launched from San Diego in 2016, now under scrutiny. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh has the story.
Greater reliance on biofuels and solar panels were part of the discussion when then Secretary of the Navy Ray Mabus touted the Navy's ambitious energy-saving goals when launching the Great Green Fleet from the aircraft carrier John C. Stennis in San Diego back in January 20th, 2016.
Well, we're doing it in a lot of ways. One is we're changing the types of engines that we have. We're going to hybrid drives on a lot of our ships. Second thing is we're doing stuff like changing the light bulbs. We've got hull coatings, we've got stern flaps on ships.
34 destroyers were to be retrofitted to run partly on electric power to extend their range and lower fuel consumption, including those ported in San Diego. After the Trump administration took over, there were questions over whether any of these programs would survive. Defense News reports the Navy is canceling plans to upgrade the destroyers in upcoming budgets. The first destroyer retrofitted, the USS Tungsten, will be used as a test ship once its upgrade is finished next year. A Navy spokesperson cited changing departmental priorities. The entire program was originally expected to cost $356 million. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
96-year-old Betty Reed Soskin is the oldest National Park ranger. Her new book, Sign My Name to Freedom, chronicles her remarkable life. She works at the Rosie the Riveter World War II Park in Richmond, where she helps visitors understand the contributions of women and African Americans to the war effort. KQED Newsroom's Thuy Vu talks to her about her career.
And so why did you decide to become a park ranger at the age of 85? Because that was not your story.
Yeah, I never did really decide. I came into Richmond as a field representative for a member of the California State Assembly, for Dion Arner. And as such, the park bloomed into my district. And I began to attend those first planning meetings because it was something that was occurring in the 14th Assembly District, and gradually became involved in that planning operation.
And you became involved for a reason. I mean, you spoke up and said, look, there are nuances to this story.
Because
this was
the
not
reason
my story.
the reason that Richmond had been selected was because though there were boom towns that grew up around the country, it was only here in Richmond that there were enough still standing structures through which to interpret that history. And but the structures that would have told my story, the African American story, had been long ago torn down. So that in order to see that that history was more inclusive, there was more than the story of Rosie the River, the white woman's story. There was a story of 120,000 Japanese Americans being interned. There was a story of the Port Chicago explosion where there were 320 lives lost. There was a story of African Americans who had come out of the sharecroppers, come out of the South, the 5 southern states to answer the call for workers. Those stories were going untold. And in order to see that that was history was inclusive, I became a part of the planning operation.
And during the Civil Rights era, you decided to become a bridge between liberal whites around Walnut Creek, around Diablo Valley,
Yes.
and the Black Panthers. What did you do during that time?
Participated in fundraising activities and delivered I was called a bag lady for the Black Panthers because I was
delivered the money
involved.
in bags to
Not literally.
the Black Panthers?
Not literally. But that was a time of redefinition for me. And I had been in the suburbs as a white family and was put more in touch with my Black roots than I needed to be in the Bay Area. So that was a period of redefinition for me.
You have lived through so much. You are a national treasure. You were even honored with a presidential coin from President Barack Obama. Given the tumultuous political climate that we live in today, what is your view of race relations?
I think that there are new voices, exciting voices that are coming out of the Black movement now that are really exciting to me. Black Lives Matter and Ta-Nehisi Coates and Joy Reid. There are many, many voices coming out now. I think that since I have lost my sense of future because I'm 96, my sense of past has been enhanced. And I am aware now that this country has been going through these cyclical periods of chaos ever since 1776, and we're in another one of them now. But it's in those times that the democracy is being redefined, and that we have access to the reset buttons, and that we're in one of those places right now. So that for me, it's very hopeful. It's very exciting because all those things that were very negative, that were very ugly, are now available to be seen by the entire nation when they used to be simply things that existed in the Black community. Now everyone sees them. We all saw Charlottesville.
Well, we are so lucky to have you and your perspective, and I wish you the best of luck with your new book.
Thank you very much.
Betty Reed Soskin, thank you for being here.
You can see more of that interview on kqed.org. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.